So Devin, first off, I think you were saying you've been playing some Pioneer. What have you been into lately?
The one that I have been enjoying the most would be the Boros deck.
Ooh, the Boros tokens.
So this is actually a deck that kind of was conceptualized from a Spike deck. So Spike was actually playing this in Modern with Knight Errant of Eos. And what he did is he took, like, he had Memnite, Ornithopter, paired that with the 8 copies of Kuldotha Rebirth, because Rebirth and then plus Gleeful Demolition itself, and then pairing all that stuff with the Convoke cards. And I was looking at the deck list, and I figured most of it was Pioneer legal anyways. Unfortunately, we don't have access to Memnite, and we don't have access to Kuldotha Rebirth. But what you do have is you have the same core. So you have Ornithopter, Thraben Inspector, and Voldaren Epicure, which turn on Gleeful to make tokens. You're powering out the Convoke cards with those tokens. We have 4 Venerated Loxodon, 4 Knight Errants of Eos, and then you have like this Reckless Bushwhacker package with Burning Tree Emissary, Bushwhacker itself, and then, Legion Loyalist to kind of help push through some damage. I've been really impressed with this deck. I've had, I posted a 5-0 on Twitter, had a couple 4-1s with it. There was a prelim, somebody, I think 3-1 or 4-0 to prelim with it, somebody 5-0 to league with it. So I've been loving this deck.
Okay. So I already forgot what Knight Errant of Eos does, and so I pulled it up. And so this is the 4 and a white Convoke 4/4 human knight. When it ETBs, you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You reveal up to 2 creature cards with mana value X or less from among them, where X is the number of creatures that convoked Knight Errant of Eos. Put the revealed cards in your hand, then shuffle. So, for example, let's say you use 4 creatures to convoke it, right? Then you look at the top 6 cards, and each of the creature cards can be mana value 4 or less, not a combined mana value, right?
Right.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so you look at top 6, and then you get, 2 creatures with 4 or less, or ideally you want to get to 5 most of the time so you can hit the other Convoke cards. But yeah, I mean, there are some spots where you're really just looking for a Bushwhacker, and then you can just do it for 3, because you're always looking at 6 deep. That's the nice part. It's like, even if you only tap 1 creature, you're still looking at 6 cards. So, it's really flexible in that regard. And then you have, like, the Loxodons to help push a lot of damage and get you past, get through those final points of damage too. So it's been good.
Yeah, so what's it end up looking like typically? Like, are you trying to maximize the Knight Errants and the Venerated Loxodons? Or are you just kind of like, hey, whatever fits this board state, I'm happy with?
Yeah, I mean, essentially any hand with Gleeful and Ornithopter, those are the cards you want to see in your opening hand combined the most. Those are the most explosive starts, where you can say go like turn 1 Ornithopter, Gleeful it, make 3 goblins, and then turn 2 you have 3 creatures plus 2 lands. That's already 5 mana to play a Convoke card. So if maybe you play like another 1-drop and then you have 4 creatures in a land, you can still cast the Convoke card. But even without those draws, you can still go like, Thraben Inspector on 1. Maybe like there's also Forbidden Friendship. I forgot to mention this card, but this is red and a colorless sorcery. Make a 1/1 red haste creature and a 1/1 white soldier token. The important part about that is it makes a white creature. So you don't have a ton of actual white creatures besides Thraben Inspector to convoke the Convoke cards out. So making a white creature off of Forbidden Friendship is very important because you have a high density of red creatures, but not as many white creatures. So that's important as well.
So you're not relying entirely on your mana to do the white pip of your Convoke creatures. You really do want to use the creatures themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then Thraben Inspector and Friendship help that out a lot.
I just want to be playing Hordling Outburst in this deck because it takes me back. I want 3 goblins for 3 mana.
That's below rate these days, my friend.
Too
expensive.
I feel like Ornithopter plus Gleeful Demolition is like build your own Hordling Outburst, but yeah, it does in fact only cost 1 red mana that way.
So Devin, is this deck just super aggro? Is that what it feels like, or are you, or is it okay? That's what it's about. Explosive starts. It's not about. I mean, even maximizing the Convoke cards or 5-drops and are like Knight Errant is a little grindy, right? It gets you more cards. Venerated Loxodon is just kind of big, right, and makes your creatures big. That's kind of what it feels like. It's just like, oh my god, turn 3, I have 20 power on the board or something like that.
Right, you could imagine a draw that's like turn 1 Ornithopter Gleeful, 3/1/1s, And then even if you don't have any other creature, you just go land 2 mana plus the 3 tokens, make Luxodon. That's 10 power on turn 2. Like,
right.
If you're on the play, there's not a lot of decks that can beat that kind of start.
Yeah.
I found myself frequently sideboarding out some copies of the Ranger, the Knight Errants in the faster matchups because a lot of the times you don't want to use you don't want to use your creatures that would normally be dealing damage to draw more cards because you need to be faster in those matchups.
Right.
But you can afford to do it with Luxodon because you're putting more power in place, so you're kind of getting that damage back. But yeah, it's just like you just want to go as fast as possible with this deck.
So what do you think this is good against then? So it's good against mono green, I'm assuming, because of the speed, or how's that working out?
Yeah, so this deck has a really fast Goldfish, so I've been pretty happy with the mono green matchup, the Lotus Field matchup, just anything that you're trying to race. Even Greasefang, one nice thing about Greasefang is Loyalist. The ability makes it so tokens can't block, so their 4/4 Angels won't be able to block if you have Loyalist.
No, makes sense. So you think the speed here is still good enough to beat the current iterations of green?
Yes, like I think this deck is really favored against anything that you want to race. So Greasefang, Green, Lotus Field, stuff like that. I have been struggling against Rakdos. I actually played this in the challenge. I lost to Rakdos 3 times. I went 0-3 drop and I lost to Rakdos all 3 times.
Oh,
I need to figure out how to fix that matchup. But and that's kind of tough because Rakdos is the most played deck. But we could try some different stuff and maybe there are avenues to approach that. Like I have winning announcements in this sideboard, but I haven't actually been happy with them against Rakdos because this is only an 18 land deck, and actually getting to 3 mana is kind of tricky sometimes.
All right, Devin, so this is an awesome deck to see. I loved seeing this brew pop up on Twitter at the end of the week last week and over the weekend. I was like, whoa, what is Devin doing? What are all these things? It's really too bad that there isn't another Bushwhacker style kind of effect in this, but I guess Loxodon is essentially that and it's permanent, right?
Yeah, that's like the weird thing about this compared to the modern version is you have 4, like the modern version gets to play 8 zeros, 8 Bushwhackers, and 8 Gleeful's, and this deck gets basically loses one of each of those, so you cut that down in half. But I think the power level of Pioneer is significantly lower than the power level of Modern, so it's kind of scaling in that regard. And I think this has what it competes. As long as we can figure out the Rakdos matchup, this is definitely a contender, I think.
That's awesome.